This penny could have been lost forever, but instead, it changed one collector's life in ways he never imagined. A single 1976 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, something millions of people have handled without thinking twice, turned out to be worth over $1 million, and tonight, I'm going to tell you why it started, as so many of these stories do, with a moment that almost never happened. A man in Colorado was rolling up his spare change, coins that had sat in a jar for years, pennies, nickels, dimes, nothing special, and then, his thumb brushed across one coin that felt different. It was the same size, the same color, but something about it seemed almost alive. He couldn't explain it, and here's the thing, most people would have tossed it back into the pile without a second glance, but he didn't, and that single decision turned a single cent into $1 million miracle. You see, the 1976 D. Lincoln penny hides one of the most elusive and thrilling secrets in all of coin collecting. A secret tied to America's bicentennial year, a time when the U.S. Mint was churning out coins in the hundreds of millions. The Denver Mint, marked with that small but significant D under the date, produced pennies day and night to meet demand, but in the chaos, a few rare mistakes slipped through. A mistake so small, so nearly invisible, that even seasoned collectors missed them, and yet, these mistakes are worth a fortune, because when a coin is struck in error, but escapes into circulation, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, a piece of history the mint never intended the public to see. And for the 1976 D penny, there's one particular variety that sends collectors into a frenzy, but before I reveal what it is, you need to understand why this coin is so personal to so many Americans. 1976 wasn't just another year, it was the nation's 200th birthday. Every parade, every flag, every firework was a symbol of pride, and hidden in that patriotic celebration, these pennies were quietly slipping into wallets and pockets. Some were perfect, some were far from it. One in particular found its way into the hands of that Colorado man, and when he looked closer, his heart started to race. The coin's surface told a story. The D-Mint mark looked strange, almost doubled. The date, 1976, had faint shadows around the numbers, as if the die had struck it twice. The rim of the coin wasn't perfectly even, and the copper gleamed differently from the rest of the pennies in his jar. So he took it to a local coin dealer, a man with 40 years of experience. The dealer's hands shook as he examined it under magnification, then he looked up and said only one word: wow. This was no ordinary penny. It was a rare Denver minted 1976 double die variety, struck on a transitional planchet, the wrong metal for the year, and the combination was almost unheard of. But here's where it gets crazier, because the last time one of these hit the auction block, collectors battled for it like it was the Holy Grail. When the gavel fell, the winning bid was over $1 million. Think about that, a coin worth 1 cent, selling for more than a luxury home, and that's why dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies before someone else does. But here's the dangerous part, most people walk right past them, they spend them, they drop them in vending machines, they let them disappear into change counters and bank bags, gone forever. And yet, right now, one could be in your house, maybe in your purse, maybe in that dusty jar on your kitchen counter. Because here's the trap, there are millions of 1976 D pennies, and only a tiny handful are worth life-changing money. First, check the date, look for clear doubling on the 1, the 9, the 7, and the 6. The doubling will appear like a shadow, or a faint second set of lines around the numbers. Next, look closely at the D-Mint mark. If it appears thicker than normal, or slightly doubled, you might have struck gold or copper, in this case. But there's another secret most people miss. The metal die in 1976, pennies were supposed to be 95% copper. But a rare few were struck on experimental planchets, thinner, lighter, and with a slightly different tone. If your penny feels just a touch lighter in your hand, that could be your first clue. And don't forget the edges. An uneven rim, or a faint misalignment between the front and back designs, could mean you're holding an error strike, the kind that auction houses love. One more thing, if you find what you think is a match, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Every scratch, every mark, every grain of original surface matters. Collectors will pay far more for untouched coins. So here's the truth, in a world where most pennies are ignored, one small, overlooked coin from 1976 has turned ordinary people into millionaires, and your story could be next. This coin almost ended up in a junk drawer, forgotten, dusty, and worth just a single cent. But when the right set of eyes finally saw it, that humble penny turned into a life-changing fortune, over $1 million. Now, here's the truth no one tells you. This coin is hiding in plain sight. Not in some dusty museum or locked vault, but in the pockets, jars, and piggy banks of everyday Americans. And if you know what to look for, you might just hold history and a fortune in your hands. The year was 1940. America was still clawing its way out of the Great Depression. Every cent mattered. Families saved pennies in jars to buy bread, to keep the lights on, to put food on the table. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck millions of Lincoln wheat pennies, simple, copper coins with Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. They were meant to be ordinary. But among them, a tiny number carried secrets that no one noticed, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector stumbled upon a 1940 penny in his grandfather's belongings. It looked unassuming, until a jeweler's loupe revealed something extraordinary. A minting flaw so rare, so unexpected, that dealers began making calls immediately. Before long, that penny was sitting under the bright lights of a major auction house, where bids climbed past $100,000, then $500,000, and finally soared beyond $1 million. So what makes a single 1940 penny worth more than most houses? The answer is part science, part history, and part pure luck. You see, in 1940, coin production was still far from perfect. Dies, the metal stamps that strike each coin, would wear down or get damaged over time. Sometimes they were polished incorrectly, leading to missing details. Other times, a misaligned strike would shift the design slightly. But the rarest and most valuable flaws came from doubled dies. Imagine every single detail on the coin: Lincoln's eye, the lettering, the date stamped twice, ever so slightly off. To the naked eye, it looks like a shadow or blur. But to collectors? It's a goldmine. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, because when a coin combines a rare error with an early year wheat penny in pristine condition, the price can explode. But here's the twist: not every 1940 penny with no mint mark is valuable. In fact, most are only worth a few cents. The key is condition and rarity. A circulated, scratched-up example might be worth $1 or $2. But a coin in near-perfect mint-state condition, with its original luster and sharp details, can bring thousands, and if it has a dramatic double die or other rare variety, it can break the $1 million mark. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle when he found his 1940 penny and change from a diner breakfast. He almost spent it again, until a glint of unusual shine caught his eye. That tiny moment of hesitation changed his life forever. Many people have owned these coins without knowing it. They sit in coffee cans, shoeboxes, or tucked into the corners of coin albums, waiting for someone who understands their value. The backstory only gets deeper. In the early 1940s, the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins under pressure. The Second World War loomed over the horizon, and resources were being shifted toward the war effort. Mistakes were more likely. Quality control was stretched thin. That's when some of the rarest double die and off-center strike wheat pennies slipped into circulation unnoticed. Collectors were shocked when, decades later, a handful of these survivors began surfacing. Auction records broke again and again. Stories of people turning up rare 1940 pennies in bankrolls or inherited collections spread like wildfire. And each time, the coin community asked the same question: how many more are out there? But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date. On a true double die, the numbers will appear slightly doubled, as if a faint shadow is behind them. The letters "In Liberty" and "In God We Trust" may also have a split or shadow effect. Flip it over, and check the wheat stalks. A dramatic double die can make them appear thicker, with edges that seem doubled even without an error. A 1940 penny in flawless condition, graded MS-67 or higher by a professional, can fetch jaw-dropping prices. But with the right variety and the right condition? That's when million-dollar headlines are made. Imagine it. You're holding a coin smaller than a quarter-inch in diameter, worth more than a lifetime of hard work. A coin that's survived over 8 decades of history, through war, recessions, and generations of hands, only to end up with you. But here's where most people go wrong. They see 1940 and no mint mark and assume it's valuable. The truth? 99% aren't worth much. You need the trifecta: rarity, condition, and desirability. That's why serious collectors always get their coins authenticated and graded before selling. And here's a warning: there are counterfeits out there. Some sellers try to pass off altered coins or machine-damaged pieces as genuine double dies. That's why, if you suspect you've got a rare variety, you send it to a trusted grading service like PCGS or NGC. The difference between an altered coin and a real one is the difference between a few bucks and $1 million. Every single day, coins are slipping through fingers, rolling into cash registers, vanishing back into circulation. Somewhere, right now, someone is spending a coin that could have paid off their mortgage, their debts, and set up their grandchildren's future. Check the date. Look for that unmistakable doubling. Step 2. Examine Lincoln's profile and the lettering for splits or shadows. Step 3. Check the overall condition. Sharp edges, full wheat stock lines, and original shine are the hallmarks of a valuable piece. Step 4. Protect it immediately. No cleaning, no polishing, just straight into a protective holder, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now and it's worth over $1 million. Imagine the kind of change you toss in a jar without thinking, the coin you give to a cashier without a second glance, turning out to be worth more than your house, your car, maybe even your entire retirement fund. The 1991 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins, not just rare, mysterious, not just valuable, life-changing. The story begins in the early 90s. George H.W. Bush was in the White House. The Gulf War was on the evening news. And at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia, something happened that should have never happened. Penny after penny rolled off the presses, each one carrying Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile. But a small, almost invisible error slipped past the inspectors. An error that would go unnoticed by millions, except for a few sharp-eyed collectors. But here's the thing, this wasn't just any 1991 penny. It lacked something every modern penny from certain mints should have: a tiny, single letter, that mint mark indicating where it was made, and on some of these coins, it was missing entirely. At first, nobody noticed. They were just ordinary cents, clinking in pockets and cash registers across America, but one day, a collector in Ohio spotted one. He tilted it toward the light, searching for the small DRS he expected to see. Nothing. What he did next set off a frenzy. He called another collector friend. Then a coin dealer. Then an appraiser. Within days, whispers began to spread through the coin community: there's a 1991 penny, with no mint mark. But here's the part that shocked everyone: this wasn't an intentional design choice. It was a mistake. A minting oversight. And in the world of numismatics, mint errors like this, especially on a modern coin, can be worth a fortune. One sold at auction, for over $1 million, yes, a single cent, trading hands for seven figures. You see, in 1991, Philadelphia-made coins were typically struck without a mint mark. But here's the twist: certain proof coins and special strikes were expected to bear distinguishing marks. A tiny fraction didn't. And these no-mint mark varieties, under the right conditions, became legends. What makes this coin even more special is condition. Collectors weren't just hunting any old 1991 penny, they were hunting one in pristine, untouched shape. Red, gleaming copper. No scratches, no wear, no fingerprints, but that's easier said than done. Think about it: how many pennies have you handled today? Yesterday? Over the last 30 years, every single one has been dropped, slid across counters, scraped against other coins. Finding one from 1991, with flawless surfaces, is like finding a diamond in a sandbox, and yet, some did, and that's when the million-dollar headlines started rolling in. But here's where the story gets even crazier. One man in California discovered his while cleaning out an old coffee can of spare change. He almost dumped it into a Coinstar machine, but something stopped him. A glint. A detail he couldn't explain. He took it to a coin shop. The dealer froze when he saw it. They brought in an authenticator, and in that moment, the man realized his life had just changed forever, because the penny in his hand was worth more than he had made in the last 10 years combined. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Now here's what you need to know if you want to find one. 1991. Step 2. Flip the coin under good light. Look closely under Lincoln's portrait. That's where the mint mark should be. If it's missing, don't panic. You may have struck gold, or rather, copper. Step 3. Condition is king. Even a missing mint mark won't make it worth $1 million if it's scratched, dull, or worn. You need that blazing, original luster. Thinking any no mint mark coin is instantly rare. Many are common, especially from Philadelphia. What makes this variety extraordinary is its combination of error, scarcity, and pristine state. So before you toss that penny into a tip jar, look again. Tilt it toward the light. Study it like it might change your life, because it just might. Collectors are still searching. Dealers are still paying huge premiums. And somewhere out there, another one is waiting, buried in a desk drawer, a piggy bank, a forgotten jar. This coin almost slipped through someone's fingers, straight into a coin jar at the back of a dusty kitchen cabinet. They almost didn't think twice about it. But when it finally came into the hands of an experienced collector, it stunned the entire coin world, because this tiny piece of copper was worth nearly $1.5 million. And here's the part that will make you check your change tonight: there's a chance you might already own one. The year was 1985. Reagan was in the White House. The Cold War still loomed over the world. Gas was barely over $1 a gallon, and most people didn't give a second thought to the pennies they used every day. But deep inside the US Mint, something happened, something so small, so unnoticed, that it would take decades for anyone to realize just how extraordinary it was. A batch of Lincoln Memorial pennies rolled off the presses without a mint mark. That's right, no tiny D for Denver. No S for San Francisco. Just a blank space where the mint mark should have been. It wasn't intentional, but it wasn't caught either. For years, these no mint mark 1985 pennies blended in with billions of others. They traveled through grocery store tills, coffee shop counters, and vending machines. They sat in jars, in pockets, in purses, completely ignored. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned coin dealers. One ordinary man, not a professional numismatist, not a wealthy investor, found one in his loose change. He almost spent it on a cup of coffee. Instead, on a hunch, he slipped it into his pocket and took it to a small coin shop in his hometown. The shop owner's hands trembled as he placed the penny under his magnifying glass. The color, the strike, the missing mint mark, it all lined up. And the coin's condition? Pristine. This penny was no ordinary strike. It was an error, a perfect storm of rarity, demand, and historical intrigue. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were calling each other across the country. And when the penny went to auction, the bidding war was unlike anything anyone had seen for a coin from the 1980s. When the gavel finally came down, the price had soared into the realm of fantasy, over $1 million for a single 1-cent coin. But here's the part most people miss: not all 1985 pennies without a mint mark are worth this kind of money. In fact, millions of ordinary ones exist, and they'll never be worth more than face value. The magic lies in the details. The first thing you need to look for is the condition. Coin graders call it mint state. That means no scratches, no wear from circulation, no dulling of the copper surface. These $1 million examples look almost as fresh as the day they left the mint, even decades later. The second is the clarity of the strike. On a genuine error, the missing mint mark isn't worn off, it's absent from the start. Under magnification, you'll see no trace of the tiny DRS that should have been punched into the die before the coin was struck. And finally, there's the provenance, the coin's history. The examples that reach the highest values often come with authentication from top grading companies like PCGS or NGC. Without this certification, even the most stunning coin might sell for far less. But here's where it gets exciting, and where your story could begin. Some of these 1985 no mint mark pennies are still out there, sitting quietly in desk drawers, rattling around in old change jars, hiding in the folds of a leather wallet you haven't opened in years. They're waiting for the moment someone recognizes them for what they really are: a life-changing find worth $1 million or more. And imagine this: you're the one who finds it. You feel that familiar copper coin between your fingers, but something catches your eye. You flip it over, study the date, look just below it, and realize there's no mint mark at all. Your heart starts to race. You know what it could mean. And just like that, your life changes. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. So here's what to do. Tonight, go through every 1985 penny you have. Get a magnifying glass. Study the area beneath the date. If there's no mint mark and the coin looks like it just came from the mint, you could be holding something extraordinary. This coin was almost tossed into a coin jar, a jar that sat for years on a dusty shelf, and yet, when the owner finally took a closer look, it didn't just surprise him, it changed his life, because this tiny, ordinary-looking penny sold for over $1.5 million. It's called the 1982 D Lincoln penny, and it hides a secret that has sent shockwaves through the entire coin world. A secret so rare, so unbelievably valuable, that most people have never seen one in their lifetime. In 1982, something strange happened at the US Mint that year. The government made a quiet but historic change to America's smallest coin. For over 2 decades, the Lincoln penny had been struck mostly from copper, a warm, rich metal that gave each coin a certain weight in your hand. But copper prices were rising, and the mint needed a cheaper solution: switch to zinc, coated in a thin layer of copper, cutting costs, but changing the penny forever. But during that switch, mistakes happened, and one of those mistakes created the 1982 D penny that could be worth up to $1.6 million today. Most 1982 pennies are worthless beyond a cent. Tens of millions rolled off the presses that year, But a tiny handful, fewer than you can count on both hands, were struck in a way they were never supposed to be. One collector, sifting through a bag of loose change, spotted something odd. The coin felt heavier than normal. It had the Denver Mint mark, a small d under the date, and when weighed, it tipped the scale at 3.1 grams instead of the lighter zinc standard. He sent it to a grading service, and when the results came back, the coin world went silent. It was a 1982 D copper small date penny, one of the rarest modern US coins ever discovered. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word of the discovery spread like wildfire. Dealers called it the modern $1 million miracle. Collectors started tearing through jars, drawers, and shoeboxes filled with pennies. At coin shows, people lined up with magnifying glasses and pocket scales, hoping they might hold history in their hands. 1 penny, just one, changed a man's fortune overnight. It sold for a staggering amount, the kind of number you never expect for a coin you can still find in your pocket. Change. $1 million. From a single cent. It comes down to the perfect storm of rarity, history, and human error. The Denver Mint wasn't supposed to strike copper pennies in late 1982. By then, the switch to zinc was complete, but somehow, and no one knows for certain, a few copper planchets were fed into the presses. They were struck with the new small date design, and then, without anyone realizing, they were released into circulation. For decades, they've been hiding in plain sight, passed from hand to hand, mixed in with billions of ordinary coins, and today, they are the ultimate prize for US coin collectors. But here's the detail most people miss. This penny is heavier. If it weighs 3.1 grams, it's copper. If it weighs 2.5 grams, it's zinc, and worth only face value. That's the test that could make or break a $1 million dream. Yet even knowing this, the search is far from easy. Copper 1982 pennies are common, but the 1982 D copper small date is almost mythical. The date has a thinner, more delicate too in 1982, with a noticeable curve at the tail. Miss that subtle shape, and you might walk right past a fortune. Collectors have stories, haunting stories, of finding what they thought was the right penny, only to realize it was the wrong variety. And then, there are the lucky few, the ones who spotted the faintest detail, weighed it, and discovered they were holding a treasure worth hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. One man sold his to a private buyer. The deal was whispered about in coin circles for months. Enough to pay off his house, buy a new truck, and still have enough left over for a retirement nest egg. But here's what's truly chilling. Right now, somewhere in America, this coin is still out there, maybe in a jar of pennies by the kitchen sink, maybe in a cash register at a small-town gas station, maybe even in your pocket. At this very moment, dealers are still looking, collectors are still hunting, and every so often, one more surfaces, sending shockwaves through the hobby. First, look for the D Mint mark under the date 1982. Second, make sure the date style matches the small date variety. The two should be sharp and slim, not thick and rounded. Third, weigh it. If it hits exactly 3.1 grams on a precise digital scale, stop everything. You might be holding one of the rarest modern pennies in existence. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Don't even rub it with your thumb. Put it in a protective holder and contact a trusted coin grading service immediately. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It's the 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary looking that millions of Americans have touched it, flipped it, and tossed it into tip jars without ever realizing they were holding a life-changing fortune. The truth is, this little copper coin hides one of the most incredible stories in US coin history. A story of minting mistakes, overlooked details, and the kind of discovery that turns everyday people into millionaires overnight. But here's the twist: the reason this penny is worth up to $1.7 million isn't obvious at all. In fact, most people who see it never noticed the clue. Back in 1971, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. They were never supposed to have a mint mark, which means they look exactly like every other penny in your change. Ordinary, unremarkable, until you look closer. One collector did just that. He noticed something strange. Under magnification, the letters in the word Liberty looked doubled, like a ghostly second image was stamped right over the first. The date 1971 had the same eerie effect. This was no trick of the light, this was a minting error called doubled die obverse, and that's when things got interesting, because a doubled die penny from 1971, especially one in pristine, untouched condition, isn't just rare, it's nearly mythical. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector, thinking he had just a neat little error coin, brought it to auction. Bidders went wild. What started as a few $100s soared into the tens of thousands, then the hundreds of thousands, and finally, under the bright lights of the auction floor, the hammer dropped. The final bid? Over $1 million. Dealers were shocked. Collectors scrambled to check their change jars. Stories began to spread about other finds: a penny pulled from a roll bought at a bank, another discovered in a forgotten coffee can in an attic, and here's the part that gives you chills: some of these coins are still out there. Right now. Sitting in drawers, rattling around in piggy banks, hiding in couch cushions. That's where the thrill and the challenge lies. Most 1971 pennies are worth just 1 cent. But the rare doubled die obverse versions, those are the treasures. Look for thick, clear doubling in the letters of liberty, in the motto, "In God We Trust," and in the date. The more dramatic and clean the doubling, the higher the value. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle simply because he took a closer look. Just imagine, reaching into your change one day and finding this coin, and it's not just the doubling that matters. Condition is king. A penny that's been in circulation, scratched and worn, might fetch a few thousand. But a flawless example, one that looks like it just left the mint yesterday, can bring life-changing money. Collectors describe holding one as surreal. Your heart races, your hands shake, and every instinct screams that you found something the world wants. Many people throw these coins back into circulation without ever realizing what they are. The doubling can be subtle. Lighting matters. You might need a jeweler's loupe or a magnifying glass to spot it. And yet, once you see it, you can't unsee it: that crisp, doubled lettering that sets your heart pounding. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Some even pay finders a reward just for the chance to buy it before it hits an auction block, and that's why every coin you touch deserves a second look. Because sometimes, the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight. Think about it: you could walk past a gold nugget on the sidewalk and never notice. But if you know what to look for, you can spot it instantly. The 1971 no-mint mark doubled die penny is that gold nugget, only smaller, and worth even more. What makes it so special is its combination of extreme rarity and undeniable visual drama. Once word spread in the coin community, it became a legend. People compared it to winning the lottery, except your ticket is sitting in your pocket change. But here's the question that keeps collectors up at night: how many more are out there? Every year, stories pop up of new discoveries. A coin dealer in Ohio buys a box of pennies at a yard sale and finds one. A teenager in California checks a jar of coins his grandfather left him, and there it is. Each story reignites the hunt, sends people diving into drawers and glove compartments, scanning every penny with a racing pulse, and yet, the majority of people still don't know. That's why I'm telling you this now. Because the opportunity won't last forever. Every time one of these coins is found, the total supply drops, and the frenzy among collectors rises. You're at your kitchen table, sorting through a small pile of coins. You spot a 1971 penny. You almost toss it aside, but something makes you stop. You grab a magnifier. And there, under the glass, you see it. That doubled image. Your heart skips a beat, and in that moment, you're holding not just a piece of copper, but a ticket to $1 million. Step 1: look for 1971 pennies without a mint mark, meaning no small d or s under the date. Step 2: under good lighting, check the word liberty and the date for bold, distinct doubling. Step 3: examine In God We Trust for the same effect. Step 4: if you think you see doubling, don't spend it. Store it safely and get it authenticated by a trusted coin grading service, and remember, most people miss it because they simply don't look. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.